15th of Chess, Third Age. After duskwood was struck, two individuals who were later identified as Milo and Dain rushed to the town where they witnessed the survivors under attack by the undead. They were then approached by a dragonborn paladin by the name of Elias and a half-elf by the name of Varus. Overwhelmed, the two asked Dain and Milo for their aid in helping the village. They then went into the village to evacuate what survivors they could before a zone of silence enveloped the town and forced the party back out the southern gate. There, they saw the survivors had set up a temporary camp just outside the village that the guards established to serve as a staging area. As Dain and Milo began to recover, another dragonborn who identified himself as Talos approached the camp to offer his aid. He was directed to Dain and Milo, and the three camped for the evening. 16th of Chess, Third Age. Now allies, Dain, Milo, and Talos made further expeditions into the town of Duskwood, looking for survivors, fighting the undead, avoiding a roaming death knight, and attempting to discover the source of the zone of silence that now cursed the town. They were soon joined by Elias, who assisted them against an undead minotaur, before they retreated into a tavern. Once inside, the party discovered that the zone of silence did not affect the building interiors. The party observed the tavern still in operation, despite the condition of the town, and decided to recuperate there as they attempted to gather their thoughts. They were unaware that the building was under an illusion spell, which had trapped them there for 8 hours, until the half-elf Varus arrived to break the illusion. As Varus guided them out of the ruined tavern, something significant occurred. A bright light enveloped the area, and a solar of Tyr appeared before them. It informed Elias they had 8 days to take care of the situation within the town. Then the solar vanished, leaving the party in the tavern alone. Elias seemed to understand what the solar was insinuating, and announced his resolve to retake the town. The party then promptly returned to their camp to retire for the evening, and it was observed that Elias sent a runner out to the north with a message. 17th of Chess, Third Age. The party awoke to find that Elias had sent out some scouts into town and received a lead on a possible source for the Zone of Silence. The party, now accompanied by Varus, traveled to a prominent house deep within the town, near the border of the crater where the meteor had struck. As they made their way inside, they were attacked by a group of cultists who swore fealty to a being known as Mount Draxus. The party quickly defeated the cultists and freed their prisoner, an expert chef named Rodden Gamzee. Upon the cultists' defeat, the party felt a shift in the air and realized the Zone of Silence had dispersed. Talos began tending to Rodden, while Varus used Speak with Dead to interrogate one of the cultists. There, he learned their base of operations lay within the Church of Pelor, on the edge of the crater to the northwest. Milo offered to escort Rodden to the camp, to ensure his safety and report back to Elias, while Talos, Dain, and Varus made their way to the church. The crew quickly made their way to the church, avoiding several groups of undead along the way. Within, they observed one of the cultists alone at the altar, his back to them. Thinking they could get the jump on him and capture him, they quietly snuck up towards the cultist. Thinking they could get the jump on them. To their horror, the cultists whipped around to charge at them as a charge detonated, injuring the three heroes. It was at this point they realized they had walked right into a trap. As a great number of cultists swarmed from all sides surrounding them, Talos, Dain, and Varus were forced back behind the altar as the cultists fired spells and arrows at them, slowly closing in. Thinking quickly, Varus rallied the group and charged the cultists in hopes of breaking their lines, allowing them to escape. But before they could escape, the leader of the cultists appeared at the exit, blocking their path. He informed the group that they would serve as sacrifices to revive Lord Mount Draxus. A powerful lich sealed away nearby. As he approached them, a voice rang out saying, "I've got you now," followed by several thunderous sounds. As the cacophony died down, the cult leader dropped dead before them. The Sun Group watched the culprit flee near the rear of the church, leaving behind a calling card identifying them as Geroid, an infamous bounty hunter. Catching their breath, the group met Elias, Milo, and a Goliath named Ivan as they arrived with reinforcements to help secure the church. Seeing that the fight was over, Elias ordered his men to ensure no cultists remained while Varys gave his report on the incident. After this, the party learned the name and purpose of the Goliath, Ivan, the champion of Tyr. He had come to assist the retaking of Duskwood, and now to prevent the revival of Mount Draxus. At this point, Elias and Ivan began working with their men to secure the area while allowing the party to investigate the rest of the church. In the back rooms, they discovered a platinum longsword and a suit of plate armor which must have belonged to someone of great import, no doubt the former caretaker of the church. Moving on, they discovered stairs leading down to a set of large doors, magically sealed, behind which they heard inhuman sounds emanating. The party returned and reported this to Elias, who ordered some men to guard the stairs while they figured out a way to get through them. Thanking the party for their hard work, Elias ordered them to return to camp to rest up until he gave further orders. Nineteenth of Chess, Third Age. The party was observed resting and training at the camp on the day of the 18th, after which they appeared to be stronger and better equipped. On the 19th, Elias and his men informed the party that no progress had been made on the magically sealed door, but his scouts were investigating certain areas for clues. He then instructed the party to investigate and liberate the town's guardhouse, hoping for information or at the very least much-needed supplies. Varys remained in the camp to tend to his duties, leaving Talos, Dain, and Milo to head to the guardhouse. Once the party arrived at the guardhouse, they began quickly dispatching the undead within, until they came upon an undead minotaur. They attempted to fight the monster, but quickly became overwhelmed. At this point, the party was aided by another, wielding a flintlock pistol and powerful magic. With his aid, they defeated the monster and earned a brief respite. The stranger identified himself as the Dragonborn, Dallen, who had arrived in town a couple days before and was trapped in the guardhouse. Before they could discuss this strange appearance further, the party was forced to retreat further into the guardhouse as a second, stronger undead minotaur approached. They managed to escape and barricade the gate behind them before realizing they had caught the attention of still more undead and a strange shadow monster. The party eventually dispersed these new enemies before barricading the rest of the room. Exhausted from all the fighting, they decided to try and rest to recover their strength before continuing on through the guardhouse. 20th of Chess, Third Age. The party was able to rest through the night, and as the sun rose, they decided to head on to the second floor of the guardhouse. There, they faced several more undead, a mimic, and saved the town's guard, attack-gator, Princess. Once they cleared out the undead, they discovered the guardhouse's armory, as well as some supplies still intact. They then made their way back to the ground level of the guardhouse and proceeded to clear out the rest of the undead, thus securing the guardhouse. Once satisfied, the party returned to camp to report back to Elias, who sent his men to occupy the area. Pleased, Elias thanked the party and told them to rest for the remainder of the day. The party mulled about the camp, talking to some of the men, including a blacksmith named Flint, and a halfling named Mick Dugan. The party utilized some of the new resources from the guardhouse to better equip themselves and hone their skills. 21st of Chess, Third Age. The party awoke to summons from Elias. They gathered their gear and made their way to his tent. Once there, Elias informed them that his men were still having no luck getting through the door of the church. The runes protecting the door required a password, and they were running out of time. Pondering this a moment, Varys suggested heading back to the house where they first encountered the cultists to search for clues, as they had not stayed long enough to investigate it previously. The party then made their way back to the house, where they discovered a remnant of the cult gathered. They observed the cultists collecting and destroying evidence. Seeing this, the party quickly engaged the cultists, slaying all they found, save one, who quickly escaped out the back window. The party attempted to stop this last cultist, but they managed to escape. They were seen heading towards the crater in the direction of the church. Once searching the building was clear, they investigated and discovered a paper in need of deciphering. This paper ultimately revealed the password for the door of the church. With this in hand, the party returned to their camp, giving the password to a runner who delivered it to the men stationed at the church. As the party settled in for lunch, the ground began to shake. Lightning and thunder ripped through the sky. Within seconds, an alarm rang out. The party, including Varys, sensed danger and rushed to grab their gear as the runner they had set out earlier returned. He informed them they were needed urgently at the church. As the party made their way through town, one of Elias's allies, known as Stormloper, and his men engaged the hordes of undead swarming the ruins of Duskwood. As the party quickly made their way to the church, they realized the cultists were becoming desperate and attempting to revive Maldraxxus. They believed the surge in undead activity stemmed from the cultists attempting an incredibly dangerous ritual. Once the party arrived at the church, they observed Elias and Ivan kill a banshee and a skeleton minotaur before returning to them. Elias told the party that his men made it through the door but were ambushed by the cultists. He then asked them to head down and stop the cultists before turning to deal with another horde of undead. Ivan led the party down into the crypt below, where they faced a small force of undead. There, Ivan acted as a shield as they moved through the caverns, defeating the undead minions until they eventually made their way to a large door. The Death Knight the party had hoped to avoid was guarding the door. Seeing the party, it charged, gravely injuring Dain and dealing a fatal blow to Dallen. But before his soul could be claimed, a divine light enveloped his body, and Dallen stood back up. He claimed he heard the voice of Pelor, which told him, "You must fight on. Unfortunately, this is all I can do to help for now." As the party regrouped from the attack, Ivan tackled the Death Knight and shoved it against a wall. He gave a nod to Varys, who then guided the party through the large door, closing it behind them. After taking a second to pick themselves back up, the party continued into the next room, where they encountered several of Elias's men, who appeared to not be in control of themselves. Also, to the party's shock behind them was the cult leader they watched Gilroy kill earlier, now transformed into a wight. The party engaged in a fierce fight, fearing their time was running out. After a fierce struggle, they managed to free the men's mind before finally defeating the wight. The party then rushed through the doors the wight was guarding, finding a short hallway with a magical barrier of prismatic light. Realizing it was a prismatic wall, Varys knew the party would be unable to break through it in time, and pulled out a rod of cancellation. Varys strained as he pressed the rod into the wall, but it seemed to be working as the rod slowly ate away at each layer of the wall. Finally, the rod broke through the last layer of the wall and exploded, blowing open the doors behind it and revealing a grand room. As the party gazed into the room, they saw two surprised cultists on the other side of the door, and behind them was a magic circle glowing on the ground, with 13 of the townsfolk surrounding it. From the center of the room, a body had formed, but it looked weak. Before the party could do anything, one of the cultists quickly cast a spell of daylight, blinding the party, and allowing the two cultists to grab the body of Maldraxxus and his phylactery before teleporting everyone in the room away. Dazed, the party stood alone a moment before walking back into the crypt. Realizing they could do nothing more there, the party made their way back towards the outside. On the way back, they found Ivan standing over the now unconscious Death Knight. He informed the party that the Death Knight was actually the old guardian of the church above, a guardian of Pelor. He then handed the party a magic scroll he had found on their person as well. As the party examined the scroll, Elias arrived from the surface, informing that the undead activity above had abruptly ceased. He assumed the party had succeeded in their mission, but Varys then approached and gave a brief report to Elias, explaining what happened. Instead of finishing off, Elias turned and asked for a priest to be brought down for the Death Knight. When the priest arrived, they performed a ritual which restored life to the Death Knight, returning the Guardian to her former self. Since it appeared the danger had subsided, the party made their way to the surface, where they were greeted by the cheers of the soldiers, congratulating and thanking the party for what they did. Everyone then made their way back to the camp, where a celebration had commenced. Varys took some time to investigate the scroll they received, and realized that it was a wish scroll, which allows the user to cast the wish spell. Upon revealing its nature to the party, they decided to use it to restore the town of Duskwood and its people to the state they were in before the meteorite impact. Having made their decision, Varys volunteered to use the scroll, and informed them that he would need to rest first before attempting to cast such a powerful spell. So the party enjoyed the rest of their evening, celebrating their success into the night. Thinking ahead, Dain recruited some of the townsfolk and went into the crater to retrieve the remains of the meteorite, with plans to transport it to the nearby city of Port La Montagne for processing. "22nd of chess, 3rd age. Once the party awoke, they gathered their belongings and joined Varys as he set up an area to perform the ritual near the edge of town. As they watched Varys work, the party caught sight of two individuals making their way into camp from the south. The duo twins, named Jem and Enai, joined the party and introduced themselves. The two said that when they had heard of the destruction of Duskwood, they traveled from the south to investigate. The party gave them a brief overview of what transpired and their plan to fix it. The twins, impressed, stuck around to witness the spell. Shortly thereafter, Varys called the others over as he focused on the wish scroll. Feeling the energy build up within him, he cast it upon the town. As the party watched in wonder, slowly from the point of impact, time itself seemed to reverse, as the town rematerialized as though nothing even happened. The spell complete, Varys fell to his knees, exhausted. Their job was complete. The spell had worked. Duskwood was restored. The party then explored the newly restored town, resupplying as they received praise from the townsfolk. Once they had finished, they met at the north end of town, where a wagon awaited them, containing the meteorite Dain and the townsfolk had collected. The townsfolk explained that, lacking a proper forge, they could do nothing with the meteorite, but the nearby port city of La Montagne could forge the party new gear if they desired. As the party loaded the wagon to leave, Elias and Varys approached, thanking them for their aid. Elias told the party he needed to stay with the village to ensure its safety and bolster their defenses. Varys too planned to stay in town, needing to rest before looking for Maldraxxus and the missing townsfolk. He planned to gather more information and track the party down, hoping they would help destroy the Lich. The twins Jem and Enai, also headed for La Montagne, offered to accompany the party. They accepted the offer, and thus they departed Duskwood. "25th of chess, Third Age. The party made their journey towards Port La Montaigne, traveling at a moderate pace. While on the road, they encountered a warlock whose patron was a devil named Anamoth. This warlock offered everyone in the party 1,000 gold and great power if they sold their soul to Anamoth. The party politely refused before continuing on their journey. The next day, they encountered a drunk bard traveling by wagon, who told of a tavern he planned to perform at in La Montaigne called the Sea's Respite. That evening, as the party made camp, Milo caught sight of a large sleeping dragon nearby. Fearing for his party, he snuck closer to investigate, only to discover not a live dragon, but an illusion of one. An individual camped nearby informed him that the village used a powerful magic rune to cast this dragon illusion to deter bandits. Satisfied, Milo returned to camp and retired for the evening. The next day, the party encountered a beggar child on the side of the road. The party was quick to aid the child, giving him rations and coins. But the twins and Milo noticed the child was actually a goblin. Unsure how the party would react, the twins warned the child in Undercommon to leave, which he promptly did, much to the confusion of the party. Finally, after another hour travel, the party crested the hill and were greeted with a sight of Port La Montaigne. With their journey coming to an end, Milo, Dain, and Talos, and Dain, realized they wished to stick together for now. Determined to become an official party, they'd settled on the moniker Comet's Company. Satisfied, they arrived at the eastern gate of La Montaigne and answered the guard's inquiries. From there, the twins departed, returning to their patron, a mysterious figure known as the Treasurer. Comet's Company then entered the city, where they employed a local boy as their tour guide. He showed them the highlights of the city and led them to the market district where the city's main forge stood. Once there, the party met the forge's top blacksmith, Jogagu Burningarm, who agreed to work the meteorite and forge the gear the party requested, but it would not be cheap. Looking to help ease the cost for their gear, Dain agreed to work for the smiths, helping craft their gear to lower the cost. With the meteorite taken care of, the party bid farewell to the wagon driver, who made his way back to Duskwood. The party then turned their eyes to the market district, deciding they should take this time to explore. Milo went to the tailor shop of Noah Robinson, who took his armor for cleaning and repair. Milo also requested that he dye it black and imbue it with the metal from the meteorite they had collected. Dain and Dallen traveled to the magic district, where Dain obtained more information about the mysterious shield he possessed. During this time, Talos simply sat in a quiet private spot, where he wrote letters to his family in his order, giving his location, his recent accomplishments, and asking for updates or orders. He then handed them over to the town's postmaster with instructions for where to send them. Once they finished their business, everyone but Milo went to the Sea's Respite to secure themselves rooms. Needing information, Milo searching for the whereabouts of the city's thieves guild, but found nothing. Undeterred, Milo got the idea to disguise himself and provoke some guards, causing his arrest and confinement in the market's district jail. There, Milo found an inmate, who after some persuasion told him where he could potentially find what he sought. Satisfied, Milo used his cunning to break free of his cell, trapping the guard within before making his escape. He made his way to the Drunken Beaver Tavern, where he found a hidden passage leading below the tavern. There, a being known as Stradabar greeted him. This being resembled a humanoid beaver, possibly some sort of were-beaver. Milo and Stradabar conversed, exchanging information before Milo departed back for the Sea's Respite. The rest of the party, meanwhile, had made their way to the Sea's Respite, where the twins Jammin and I were waiting. Inside, they met Bori Frosthand, the tavern's owner, who set the party up in their rooms. When she requested payment, the twins stepped forward and handed her a bag of 200 gold. The party gazed at the bag in shock as Bori quickly counted in the gold in utter astonishment. She looked to the twins, who asked her to put that towards the party tab. The party thanked the twins and dropped off their gear before heading down to the bar to meet up with Milo for some food and drink. First of Tarsak, Third Age. The Comet's company spent their week working, training, and exploring the port city of La Montagne. Dain spent his time at the forges. Talos aided those in need with even the simplest of tasks. Dallen began making and selling his art, while Milo spent his days at the Drunken Beaver, gaining more knowledge each day. One day, they decided to tackle some of the town's odd jobs on the bounty board. They began by helping Declan Bennett clear his warehouse of over 36 rats. It was not an easy task, as several had grown to dire size. But Declan paid them well, 500 gold pieces for their aid, and promised to spread their good name throughout the town. After this, Dain asked his friends to keep an eye out for a few specific ingredients that Forge Master Burning Arm needed for his special flux. At the end of the day, the party dined at the Sea's Respite, where Alistair and Tiberius, a pair of tiefling twins, performed using an artificer's magical box to translate their music. The next day, Milo took interest in a transportation job for a merchant, requiring some extra hands. He made his way over to the shipping district, where he met Arl Ilian, and negotiated his wages for the job. He also learned the job was not entirely above board. Besides the standard fare, they also planned to smuggle a large shipment of spices to the Isle of Antiva. The ship would set sail in 1 week's time. Satisfied with this, Milo returned to the party and found them preparing to head out on another job. He informed them on the transport job, but left out certain details. The rest of the party seemed alright for the job and asked Milo to join them in taking care of some other jobs they picked up. Milo declined, saying he had other matters to tend to, but wished them well before heading out. Milo then returned to the Drunken Beaver as Dain, Dallen, and Talos went to the bakery to help Ayana K deliver some baked goods to a fairy dragon. She believed this dragon was a guardian of the city and regularly sent it baked goods as thanks. The party happily obliged and traveled outside the city to its lair. After some harmless fun at the party's expense, the mischievous dragon sent them on their way to collect ingredients they needed for the flux, before making their way back to town. On the return trip, Talos overheard two farmers discussing the repair of a mill house cut short when the owner mysteriously fled in fear. The party decided to search for the owner after they finished their current assignment. When they reported their success to Ayana, she expressed her gratitude by giving them all some of her finest baked goods. Satisfied, the party trekked to the mill owner's rumored location and found a man named Kai. He explained that he worked to restore the mill, and a large form in the shadows frightened him away. The party promised to look into it and report back the following day. The party returned to the Sea's Respite and shared a meal with Milo before retiring for the evening. The next day, Milo once more returned to the Drunken Beaver while the rest of the party traveled north to the mill house. There, they discovered and killed 2 giant rats and a rabbit humanoid creature resembling a rat. Once certain that the mill house was clear, the party took the body of the humanoid and returned to Kai, informing him that his mill was now safe. Kai thanked them, promising free milling should they ever need it, and gave them 50 gold pieces. Determined to discover the origin of the creature they killed, they transported the body to the temple district. Once there, they found their way to the temple dedicated to death and spoke with the curator, Millie Falcine. She determined that the creature was once human, but due to its severe disfigurement, she knew nothing more. However, she knew of someone who could, and sent one of her acolytes to summon him. Not long after, the medical examiner of La Montagne wearing a plague doctor's outfit, entered the church. As the examiner studied the body, the party realized with confusion that they recognized his voice as Tiberius, one of the singing tieflings from the tavern a few nights prior. After finishing his examination, Tiberius informed the party that the creature was a were-rat, before checking each member of the party to ensure they did not contract its disease. Once assured of the party's cleanliness, Tiberius agreed to collect a vial of blood from the were-rat for the party, as Burning Arm needed some for his flux. The party thanked him and departed, delivering all the collected ingredients to Burning Arm, allowing him to complete his flux. Burning Arm expressed his gratitude for their help by cutting the costs for all of their gear in half, and informed them that the gear should be ready in less than a week. Pleased with this news, they returned to the Sea's Respite, where they informed Milo of the day's adventures and began preparations for their upcoming transportation job. 8th of Tossack, 3rd Age. The party spent the 5 days training and preparing for their trip. Milo created a new persona, now going by Rail Whitfoot. Dallen trained with a woodcarver and came to better understand the use of woodworking tools. Talos trained at the guards' training grounds while continuing to assist the locals with errands and services. Dain worked hard at the forge to complete his and his allies' gear before their departure. Once the gear was complete, and the day of the transport job was upon them, the party packed up their gear and returned to Burning Arm to pick up their new meteorite-infused gear. Burning Arm informed them that he sensed a unique property in each piece and encouraged the party to spend some time with the gear to learn about them. The party thanked him for his excellent craftsmanship before heading to the docks. Once there, Milo guided the party to the ship All had informed him of, and before them was a large caravel with the name Kraken's Skull written near the bow. As they began to climb the gangplank to board the ship, a large half-orc swung onto the gangplank from the rigging, stopping them. He introduced himself as the captain of the ship, Keth Barbosa, before inviting them on board for a tour of the vessel. He took a brief moment to show the party their sleeping quarters, introduce them to the first mate, and answer the party's questions. They learned the voyage would take roughly 15 days, depending on the weather and other circumstances. They also learned that most of them would act as bodyguards, defending the ship from potential danger, while Rail would operate the ship as a sailor. Once the party got settled, the ship departed from the docks, and their voyage began. Twelfth of Tossack, 3rd Age. For the first few days of sailing, the party became familiar with the crew and the ship as they each performed their duties, save Talos, who suffered from seasickness. During this time, they encountered a drunken sailor who accidentally rammed into the side of the Kraken's skull with the ship, causing minimal damage. Then, as the ship neared the end of the channel leading to open water, they caught sight of a terrible storm. It shook the crew and damaged the ship as ropes snapped and a cannon got loose. The cannon fell down the steps, leading down below deck, breaking some parts of it, before crashing into mid-deck, damaging the floor. After rescuing a sailor who fell overboard, the party began to wonder if they would survive the storm. Talos sent a prayer to Bahamut, asking for aid. And after several minutes of trying to keep the ship together, a beam of sunlight broke through the clouds as the storm began to disperse. The crew cheered as they found themselves at the entrance to the channel, with the storm moving eastward. Once things calmed down, the party and crew took several hours to repair the damage to the ship before continuing their voyage. Around noon of the next day, Talos spotted a foreign flag on the horizon to the west, as he patrolled the starboard side of the ship. He alerted the captain, who took out his spyglass for a better look. Just as the captain set eyes on the vessel, he saw an object heading toward at high speed and ordered the crew to take cover. After a ballista bolt splashed nearby the ship, the party quickly realized they were under attack. As the crew ran to the ship's guns to prepare them, the party noticed a second ship approaching from the port side. It seemed the two ships planned to pincer their ship and force them to surrender. Acting quickly, the party manned the ship's cannons and proceeded to fire volley after volley against their attackers. They watched as the barrage successfully sank the first ship, but as they turned to sink the other, they watched as oars popped out from that ship as it began to charge at an incredible speed. The crew braced as the ship rammed into the Kraken's skull, causing serious damage. As they picked themselves back up off the deck, the party leapt into action, grabbing their weapons and rushing to the side of the deck where the enemy ship was. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew ran below deck, hoping to patch up the ship and keep it from sinking. The party quickly grabbed some loose rigging, swung over to the enemy ship, and began cutting down the bloodthirsty pirates. A fierce fight commenced, as the party took out most of the pirates before facing their captain and deck mage, who proved to be incredibly dangerous. After a brief struggle, the party managed to kill the captain and watched as the deck mates teleported onto their own ship. The party then noticed that the pirate ship was sinking, so they finished off with the pirates and captured a couple who surrendered. Then, they just made it back over to the Kraken's skull when the pirate ship sank below the waves. The deck mage still needed to be dealt with, though. As they moved to subdue him, wood cracked loudly from the side of the ship. Everyone turned as two giant trolls climbed aboard with their gnarly green hands, issuing hungry, angry roars. The party, seeing this more pressing danger, turned to face the trolls, valiantly defending the ship from their rampage. It was a fierce fight, but after realizing the trolls were vulnerable to fire, the party finally arose victorious. The deck mage attempted to use this distraction and tried to catch Dallen off guard. The party turned from the troll's body to witness Dallen shoving his gun into the gullet of the mage before pulling the trigger. As the mage's body fell, Dallen gripped his own head before passing out. Talos ran over and tried to wake him, but found he could not rouse him, determining that he must have overexerted himself. Exhausted, the rest of the party took a short break to recover before doing anything else. As the crew of the ship continued their repairs, the party roused themselves as Captain Barbosa thanked the party for their valiant efforts and suggested that the party could investigate the sunken ships for loot while the crew repaired the ship. The ship's navigator, Shannon Nokner, imbued the party with water breathing, allowing them to stay underwater without fear of drowning. The party then conducted a thorough search of the wreckage, grabbing anything of value. However, just as they finished their survey, the party noticed several sharks approaching the wreckage. Hoping to avoid the sharks, the party quickly swam away to return to their ship, but soon realized that Jem and I were not with them. Fearing for their well-being, the party went back and held off the sharks, while Dain and Rael helped Gemini escape. Once the party returned to the ship, they decided to rest and recover their strength before investigating the second shipwreck. After their rest, the majority of the party left to go investigate the other shipwreck. Meanwhile, Dallen stayed to help repair the ship, hoping for a quicker departure. The rest of the party found the second sunken ship split in half and began their search. In the process, several glyphs triggered, wounding them slightly, but they managed to grab whatever loot they could carry. As they swam back to the ship, they carefully avoided yet another shark in their path. Satisfied with their findings, the party divided up the treasure amongst themselves and the crew, before learning that the repairs to the ship were complete. Eager to press on, the party leapt into action, hoping the ship set sail once more. (22nd of Tarsec, Third Age). After the incident with the pirates, the party continued on their journey with little incident. They encountered a fishing ship that sold them fish, a mimic that took the shape of a small vessel, a leviathan idly swimming by, and two large warships in heated battle. But perhaps the strangest of all, they witnessed the ship become enveloped in a light purple fog. It seemed to make everyone on board feel amazing, as if they were blessed. After only a couple hours' travel, the ship finally exited the fog. Upon their exit, the ship's navigator worked to see if they went off course, but found that, astonishingly, not only were they still on course, but they were now a day or two ahead of schedule, as if through teleportation. Finally, after many days of travel, the party noticed an increased volume of ships coming and going from one area. Soon, the crew caught sight of an island. Before them stretched a massive city, taking up the majority of the island. In the center was a huge structure of some kind, which seemed to resemble a palace. As they approached the dock, the captain expertly maneuvered the ship, seeming quite familiar with the sport. As the crew secured the ship, something caught Rael's eye. He leapt off the ship onto the deck and ran to a board filled with flyers, posters, and bounties. Upon it, slightly buried beneath other papers, was an old, worn poster depicting a crown. He gazed in horror as his heart sank and his countenance paled. He realized what this was. He grabbed the poster and ran back to the ship, showing it to the poster to the captain, asking if he knew what it was. The captain gave him a curious look and replied, "Of course I do. That be the silver teardrop. Although I don't know why ye be interested in it now. That fair treasure was stolen over 40 years ago, and no one's seen it since." Rael stood stunned for a moment as he processed what the captain just said. Meanwhile, the captain turned to the crew and gleefully called out, "Ah, I welcome ye to the Isle of Antiva." "Are you certain this report is accurate?" "Quite, sir. We had our eyes on them the entire time." "Very good. Continue to monitor them. I'm finding their adventures to be quite interesting." "Of course. I shall return with more reports as needed." "Very well. On your way, then."
Thank you, sir.